now to realize all the answers to the whys and what I thought I wanted all along. When they are left and you appear, an unexpected souvenir, the very best that I could hope to have. I love you 3,000, I love you the most. I'll always be with you wherever you go. And if you should stumble, I want you to know that this heart of mine will always hold you close. Oh, I love you 3,000. Never thought this began. Part of the journey is the end. But here we are, whatever it takes. Oh, if I couldn't do it all again, it's you I would keep, the rest it would bend. Of everything I made, the most wonderful is you. Oh, I love you 3,000. I love you the most. I'll always be with you wherever you go. And if you should stumble, I want you to know that this heart of mine will always hold you close. Oh, I love you 3,000. And if I should go away, then you should know my favorite part was you. There's nothing left I could say to let you know how much I love you. I love you. Girl, I wrote you this song for social isolation, 'cause I don't know how long we're gonna be together. Girl, pass the dressing, it's a blessing to be quarantined with you. You know that there's nothing that I'd rather do. True that I'm macking, and the cracking on my hands is for you. Sanitizer rub down like we do, but we can play in sunshine, unlimited screen time. I can drive you out of your mind if you want me to. I promise you we can just eat cake, fight about nothing each day. I know that it's all gonna be okay. I wanna social distance with you, girl. Hands I'll be washing as I'm watching all your roots, they're growing out. Don't worry, baby, that's what I'm about. Wipe down the counter, this encounter, no one knows for how long, but we've got enough cheese to keep us going strong, yeah. And do you know all the places I went to find TP for you, girl? And when I cough in a house, you know I cover my mouth, 'cause that's what your man should do. Sunshine, unlimited screen time. I can drive you out of your mind if you want me to. I promise you we can just eat cake, fight about nothing each day. I know that it's all gonna be okay. I want a social distance with you, girl. Hey girl, I want to tell you that I miss you. I mean, I know you're just in the other room, but it feels like you're miles away. And I'm sorry if I said something to make you mad, like your favorite joke that usually makes you roll, but this time was inexplicable in your reaction, and you said you had a weird feeling about me or remind you of a sad video you saw online. Come back to me, and we can play in sunshine, unlimited screen time. I can drive you out of your mind if you want me to. I promise you we can just eat cake, fight about nothing each day. I know that it's all gonna be okay. I want a social distance with you. Oh, we can play in sunshine, unlimited screen time. I can drive you out of your mind if you want me to. I promise you we can just eat cake, fight about nothing each day. I know that it's all gonna be okay. I want a social distance with you, girl. Stay 6 feet back, girl, but keep your heart close. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Are we on? We're not muted anymore. Hey, how are you guys doing? This is Kyle Stevens, aka Kirby Krackle. Welcome to episode this many of the Kirby Krackle Quarantinecast. I'm your host, broadcasting from sunny Linwood, Washington. Going to the beach, having a great time. Got some lunch, got some fish and chips. Just took them down to the water today with a bunch of people. Took the ferry out. Just threw the ball for my dog that I don't have. You know, all the stuff that I would be doing. But I'm not doing that. I'm staying inside. Actually, I went to the grocery store today. I went to 2 stores, and that took about 4 hours in total. So that's what I did today. Welcome to the Quarantinecast. I'm going to say this every time I do one of these, is I can't believe that this is the 5th episode. I can't believe I did this once. But here we are. Someone's getting grows up. How are you? You guys doing okay?
To quote Walter Groggins, this is fucked up. Yep, it is. That's what he said. And for some reason, that was the best thing I heard like in a week. It was acknowledgement and truth. And then he showed us how to make a margarita on his Instagram Live. So that was really cool. I have a great episode for you guys today. I'm really excited. I have Mr. Brian Crosby from the creative director from Marvel Themed Entertainment. This is the gentleman that puts together the auxiliary experiences that happen within the Marvel Universe. We're going to talk to him about Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, the Marvel Heroes exhibit at Mopop that was in Seattle, and it moved somewhere. I don't know where it is right now, but that was amazing. He put that together. The Iron Man experience in Hong Kong, China, in Hong Kong a couple of years ago. And we're going to talk to him about all this stuff. And I was really excited to hear that people were excited to hear from him, because I think there are always a lot of artists and writers interviewed in the comic book industry, but not so many event planners. And that is such a huge part of the growing MCU experience and the Marvel Comics experience. So we're going to hear from Brian in a little bit. Reaching out, what's going on? Trey, he says, hanging in there. Me too, man. Me too, my friend. It comes in waves, does it not? I had a great, I didn't have a band practice. I had a band talk last night. We do this thing every Tuesday now, which is usually when we practice on Zoom, where everyone's just in their house and people are eating salad or fixing pedals or playing bass, and we're just talking and staying tuned in with each other, which is really important. And I really enjoyed that last night. So that and this, starting to break up the week a little bit. Took like a month and a half to figure out how to do that, but figuring like it's kind of broken in a little bit. I want to talk about some stuff. I want to give some shout outs to some of my friends. We have had some more members in the nerd music community. We've had some brand new members being brought in via marriage and being born. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Eugene Adam Warrock, who got married. I think it was last week or the week ago. I toured with Eugene in 2013 for the Sounds Like You tour. And that was a lot of fun touring with him. And the number one thing I remember from our conversations, which were hours and hours and hours as we went down the West Coast and drove back up, and he goes, I don't know what your fans would think of you if they figured out how weird you really are. I was like, I think they know. I don't know what else they need to know. So I'm going to give a shout out to Eugene and all my best to him. I know he's not performing anymore these days, but that doesn't mean he's still not a badass. He is a badass. And then most recently, MC Lars gave birth to his baby boy, Atlas. I love this picture. I love this picture because for months, he and I have talked about like dad life in the way that people talk to me about it when I was a musician who was worried how that was going to work. You know, we always wonder, like, how's it going to work with my life now? How can I still tour? How can I do all this stuff? So I just kind of passed on information to him as was passed on to me. And I thought that was really nice that we would talk about that stuff. And I got to know him a lot more through those talks. I mean, we played on and off for years together, but it's always like, hey, man, good to see you. Okay, the night's going to start and you're working the merch booth or you're tearing down. Hey, man, good show. But it was never like, we never got into it really until the past year. So it's been really great to get to know him better in that way and to hear how excited he was. So all my shout out and love to Lars, and I know they're doing good. Having a baby in the middle of a pandemic, what the hell? But he's doing it, and I think he's doing it right. So again, we're going to have Mr. Brian Crosby in a little bit. I want to talk about something. Well, first I want to talk about this. I'm going to bring this on the screen right here. What is this? That's a murder hornet. Did you guys hear about these? I think my friend Ruben said, or someone said, who took the mummies out? Can we please put them back? That's a murder hornet. I guess those bust into a hive, and they can kill about 30,000 bees just by ripping their heads off in about 3 hours. They said 30 murder hornets can kill 30,000 bees in 3 hours. I don't know why it's broken down in threes, but that's a goddamn nightmare. I think I'm staying in. I'm not going anywhere. Benjamin says it's the end times. It sure is. Aren't you glad we're here together? I am. All right, so that's Murder Hornets. We'll talk about that again, never. So I want to let you guys know I was digging through some old boxes today or over the weekend, trying to clean out some stuff, and I came across all these old band tapes from, I'd say, like the late 90s to mid 2005. So I'd say that's when I was like 19 through 25 for my band Layman's Terms. So I found all these old cassette tapes, and then I randomly found, excuse me, this converter to convert them all to MP3s, and I am so excited. I don't know if I'm supposed to wait till I'm like 65 to be excited about this, but I'm excited now. I can't wait. I want to find the best of the best, or what I feel like was the best of the best, and I want to share it with you guys and catch you up on the archives there. Where is that picture here? Where is that picture? Where is it? Is it this? Of course, I should have had this queued up, right? Let's see here. Is it this? Yes. Okay, so I dug through. I found my Tupac All Eyes on Me box. You got some Tracy Chapman in there. You got some Mother Love Bone. You got some U2 Zeropa. I heard the song Some Days Are Better Than Others on there. That's never been more appropriate. So I found that. And so this was at a time when little Kyle, that's little Kyle right there, was really into collecting all the tapes he could, where what I miss about music now and streaming services is how I'm not able to see who mixed what song, or who engineered which song, or who played auxiliary guitar. Like, oh, I recognize that guy's name from this guy's record. And all the things that, when you're so hungry to digest everything there is to learn about rock and roll, that you are so happy to have in liner notes. And the interesting thing about this photo is Bloodshot, the movie, just came out, and that is when Bloodshot, the comic, just came out. So I think that was like 93, 94. Yeah, that was cool. I think, who did that? Barry Windsor Smith, I think, did that image. Pulled that out of nowhere. So, yeah, let's get rid of that here. And we're going to bring this up. So, little Kyle got his guitar. That was my first guitar, a harmony guitar, a 3/4 size, because I had teeny hands. And just like Trump. So that had a buzzing in it whenever you plugged it in, but it still did the job. And that was the first show that I ever did. My mom took me to the mall to buy that shirt. I still have it hanging upstairs. I'm going to wear that again someday. I'll wear that on my last show. Let's say, I don't know when that's going to be, but we'll just try to predict it. And I think, like, my hair right now is never been as long as it is right there again too. And it took a pandemic to get the rock back out, but it did. So I was digging through all these tapes. I found all these old band practice recordings, but the coolest thing I found was this. This is a Star Wars storybook cassette from 1979. Now, if you were of age in the early 80s and you were into Star Wars, you probably had the storybook cassette, where basically every time you turned the page, it was an R2-D2 sound. And so that's when you know to turn it, and it was just like drama, and there were French horns, and I hadn't seen Star Wars yet, but it was just badass. And I played it, and it was just like this rush of chemicals came back when I heard it. So, you know, I would never put this to MP3 and share it with people. I would never do that. But if I did, if I was ever going to do that, I would want to hear from people who would want it. Not that I would, but if I ever did, I'd want to make sure I knew in that alternate fantasy world who would want that. So, just let me know, as in, don't let me know. So, the thing that I really also want to talk about, I don't have the picture in here. That's okay. So, when I found these cassettes, I also found one from this thing called Self Pollution Radio. Now, when Pearl Jam, one of my favorite bands of all time, this is not unknown to people. Self Pollution Radio was when Pearl Jam would take over the airwaves on Thanksgiving and New Year's alternating. And so what that would be is you'd have your intercom station, your corporate conglomerate radio station, all of a sudden shut the lines down, and about like 7 p.m. either on Thanksgiving or on New Year's, 2 years back to back, all of a sudden it would say Self Pollution Radio, Eddie Vedder or someone would get on the mic, play a couple songs off vinyl, and you could hear that it was just like this big house party that was happening. Okay. So I was 13, 14. Everyone else was about, I'd say all those bands were like mid-20s, late 20s. But to me, it was like, this is the coolest thing. Where is this house party? How can I go there? But it was always landing on a holiday when I would be at my grandma from episode 1, Grandma Krackle. I would be at her house, and my parents would let me take my boombox to the party, and then they let me bring blank cassette tapes. And I would be ready, and I'd shove in, and I hit record. Like, and I'd time how long, I knew how long it was from recording side A to the end to side B. So if we were at dinner and like, we're in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner, I'd say, excuse me, Mom, can I please go flip the tape? She goes, okay, come right back. So I'd run and I'd wait and I'd flip it over and I'd put it back in and I'd press play. And these shows were about, I'd say like 4, 5, 6 hours long, where we would have to time leaving my grandma's to get back home in time on the commercial break so I could then not miss anything. I'm sure I missed a little bit, but they were really nice in knowing like how important that was to me. So it was a reminder, as my daughter watches a strawberry shortcake video, or she wants to do the strawberry shortcake puzzle that I think might be sometimes a waste of time, not a waste of time, but just 2 months of it kind of wearing a little bit nonstop. I need to remember how important those things are because obviously they're important to me. And long story long, one of the coolest things about these tapes is Eddie Vedder or whoever would say, okay, we're going to go to the performance room. Not only would they play music on vinyl just direct to the radio station, but there would be a whole room of performance. So you hear someone say, are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Okay, where's that guy? Get him in here. Oh, he's in the bathroom. Time goes by, rustling, comes in, and all of a sudden it's like, Spoon Man to get to... It's like, oh shit, that's Soundgarden. They're just hanging out at this party. Or Mudhoney would come in, right? Or Pearl Jam would play, and then at the end of the night, and I was like, why are they so sloppy? They usually don't sound bad, and they were probably just like shit-faced. But it was just amazing, and I can't wait to go back and listen to these things as an adult. And one of the coolest things, and I'm sorry I can't find the photo, but I have handwritten on the cassette, it says Dave Grohl's new songs, because the first Foo Fighters record, before it was put out, the self-titled one, it was just like this cassette that was going around the Seattle music scene of, this is Dave Grohl's songs. He just wanted to write some songs. And those demos actually became the recordings on the best-selling self-titled record. But no one had any idea at the time, and I don't know why to put that together until right now. But that was pretty cool, I think. So that is my story from this weekend. We did some other cool stuff this weekend. I'm going to talk about this at the end of the webcast. Let's check out the comments here. When we have Brian on, you guys are going to be able to ask questions. They're kind of late getting in sometimes with the way that the internet pushes it to me, but I will get to it if I see it. Let me see. Trey, he goes, I had the Empire storybook on vinyl. Dude, I didn't know they did that. I just thought I had the regular one. I got to look at that. We may have to do a trade. Benjamin says, I wore out my Empire Strikes Back cassette and grew up on the radio dramas. Perry King will always be my Han Solo. I agree, man. It was pretty cool. Lauren, shout out to the fifth sister from the UK. She says, I'm very jealous of all this. I assume you're talking about the Pearl Jam Seattle stuff, because you and I, we've got a mutual love, my friend. That's true. Okay, we are going to watch a video here in a very short period of time. Right after that, we are going to have Mr. Brian Crosby on right after this. This is one of two versions of a video that I just did. A video that I did 7 years ago. And then we're going to talk about a video I just did after talking to Brian. This is I Want to Live in a World Full of Heroes.
I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not sit here counting zeros in a cubicle downtown. I wanna look out my window, see 'em flying, and swing across the horizon as I cheer 'em on so proud. Deep-powered girl keeps staring at her face, and call Colossus and have 'em teach me ways, and then we'd exercise. I'd be one of the guys. Martial arts, from iron fist and wall. I'll dance her up and teach her all my songs. Oh, I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not cooking up these heroes at my parents' restaurant now. I wanna yell out Avengers Assemble, not order up for Ethel. Yeah, we're out of geeky now. Date Emma Frost and have her read my mind, or Magdalena, her artifacts I find, and now we catch a symphony. It'll just be her and me. Call Bucky Barnes and arm wrestle for hours. There's NMA and bring her lots of flowers. Oh, at all the trendy bars and be a guy's night out. We'd make that wolf pack now. I'd run with Flash and do a marathon. Vacation to the Savage Land for fun. Oh, I wanna live in a world full of. I wanna live in a world full of heroes. Have NPR and CNN describe the latest team. I wanna tuck my kids inside and read them stories of superhuman glory while the sleepy faces beam. Go!
Mr. Brian.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
How you doing, man? Welcome to the Quarantinecast. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for being on here. And I know we get to talk often at Comic-Cons and stuff, but we don't get to often talk to Kirby Krackle fans about what it is that you do.
Yeah, man.
And, you are the creative director of Marvel-themed entertainment, as everyone can see right there. So what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a mouthful, huh? Yeah, so Marvel themed entertainment. We're actually it's kind of one of the newer divisions of Marvel, actually. So we're responsible for helping bring the Marvel characters, the Marvel universe, the library together in dimensional forms. And we've done a lot of work in theme parks and in museum exhibits and character appearances and comic conventions, all fan experiences. So we're kind of involved in all of that, kind of bringing these stories and characters to life.
So would you say that's like you guys are the boots on the ground outside of Comic-Cons and theme parks, just in terms of bringing experiences to the fans, seeing what people are into in terms of the movies and the comics, and then translating that for wide appeal? Is that kind of what that is? Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely, working with a lot of key partners. We've worked extensively with, of course, Marvel Studios and Walt Disney Imagineering, working with SC Exhibitions on the Mopop exhibit that you talked about before.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're a pretty small team. We're a lean group, but we work with a lot of key partners to bring these things to life all over the world. So it's fun. It's really pretty cool to have, an 80-year legacy, and then to have this brand new way of telling these stories and to do something completely new with those characters that people haven't seen before. So it's pretty fun.
Because you are, we're going to get back to your origin story here in a second. But what I think is so cool about what you do is I think you and I are kind of kindred spirits in the way that we participate in the comic book industry in a non-traditional way, right? Like I do music, and like you are an artist, you're a great artist, but also your art is storytelling in physical form, almost like in guest experience.
Yeah, it is, and because you have to think about these stories completely differently. Like my background, I came from Walt Disney Imagineering, and when we're translating these stories into theme park experiences, you have to become the protagonist of the story. Typically you're reading a comic book or watching a movie or watching animation or playing a video game, but in in these experiences, you're in the story, and that whether that's a theme park experience or even a museum exhibit or whatever, you become the protagonist, and the whole world is around you, and the characters should acknowledge you. You should be a part of that if that's the kind of story you're telling. So it's a completely new way of thinking about the way Marvel stories are told.
Yeah.
You have to completely flip the paradigm of how we tell those stories.
That's so awesome, man. So are you? I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine if it was me, I'd be like, what would I dig? Like, what is something that like 8-year-old me would dig? Like let's start here and then see what legal tells us we can do and all this stuff, and then work down from that,
Yeah.
right? But like, there's the coolest thing I could think of, and then Spider-Man swoops in, and then I do this, and then this happens, how does that go for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a lot like that. I mean, you have to not let go of your inner 8-year-old for one.
No.
You still have to be able to see the world through that lens. And it is kind of thinking about like what would be the coolest experience to have, because when we're doing, when Marvel does comic books, we're doing whatever 15 to 20 comics a week. These experiences are a few times a year. In some cases, one a year, or something that has to stand for 20, 25 years and still be relevant and exciting every time people go and experience that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a completely different way of thinking about it. And so you do want to tap into the iconic, tap into the aspirational, and look for the things that people want to experience from a first person POV.
So when you talk about, that's interesting, when you talk about this has to stand for 5, 10, 20 years, because obviously so much money goes into it, and time and advertising, and it's a years long experience, right? What are the pros and cons of creating something like that with that much staying power that has to last that long?
The pros is that you have something that you can always point to. I love being able to take my kids to things and say, here's a thing that we did, or a thing that we were involved in, or something that's kind of always there, that people can revisit. The cons is you have to really do your best to get it right. That because you may only have one shot at it. Some things you can revisit. You can always, with comics, if a story doesn't take or a character doesn't take, it's okay, because, we're going to come out with more books, and that character can kind of come and go if people aren't digging it or whatever. With these kind of larger experiences with a huge investment, you really got to make sure you hit a home run, hit it out of the park on the first one.
Yeah. So it's like this character, like, people aren't going to get sick of Thor, probably, right? It's like, so that's cool. But like Beta Ray Bill, there's no Beta Ray Bill ride, because it's not the white. Yeah, that's like that's phase 45, man.
Dude, I mean, 20 years ago, or I mean, heck, 10 years ago, if you would have told me we would have a Guardians of the Galaxy attraction at a Disney park, I would have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy into a talking tree and a raccoon with a giant blaster. But here we are, and the world changes, and that's Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige and his team, they do such an amazing job of taking these ideas that may seem out there or eclectic or appeal to kind of a niche group and making them palatable for a broad audience. And they've just done a tremendous job. So now we try and do that same thing, and regardless of what the experience is. Worked on Avenger Station, which is in Las Vegas, and a couple of touring ones. It's at Treasure Island, actually, and that's one where you get to become a station agent, and you're dropped into the middle of the MCU. You're dropped into an Avengers story, and it's all grounded in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so you get to be a part of that and learn a little bit of science of behind the superheroes. And again, it's dealing with those iconic characters that people love, that we all dig, man. So it's a blast.
When we get out of here 5 years from now or whenever that is, I'm going there. I'm going to check. I'm going to see that. I'm making my bucket list. Hey, we had a lot of stuff to get into, but I don't want to leave people hanging on the questions. If you have questions for Brian, please write them in here. We got one from Ben. Ben says, I'm going to make that a little smaller. He goes, I got a question for Brian. I fondly remember Universal Studios theme park's Marvel Island when it first opened as part of the island's adventure. Did you use the park's development as a model for learning from its struggles pre-Disney acquisition? And if so, what lessons did you take away?
No, I don't. It's a completely different project, and we work with the folks at Universal, and I've been there several times. In fact, I was able to work on the refresh of the Incredible Hulk coaster ride.
Oh yeah,
and, I mean that land, that island has been there for quite a while, and that Spider-Man attraction there is amazing. No pun intended. It's really
like it's an air horn.
I know. Oh, hit it. Yeah. It's it really is it raised the bar in so many ways, and so I love working with those guys, and what's happened and happening in the Disney parks is a completely different story and a different narrative, and the things that we've done elsewhere in the world, it's all different. It's different audiences, different times, different characters. But I loved working on the Incredible Hulk coaster. That was fun to do.
It's awesome. My buddy Ruben says, he goes, would Marvel-themed entertainment ever create experiences for Adventures by Disney?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, yeah. I mean, we don't have anything in development right now, but sky's the limit, right? I mean, we're just kind of getting started, and in terms of the relationship between Marvel and the Walt Disney Company, it's still pretty new. I mean, this has only been 9 years, something like that. So, I don't think anything's off the table at this point. So who knows? Maybe someday.
Did I guess that Beta Ray Bill thing? Did I spoil something coming up?
No, you're good. I mean, who knows? I mean,
sure?
maybe Kyle.
Okay. Hey man, just like with everybody, I want to get into your origin story. I want to tell people at least my recollection of how we first met, because we're friends outside of this. I mean, you came to my 40th in the fall. I went to your 40th a couple of years before that. And one of the coolest things about your party was there was a cereal bar. I remember that. It was like all these different cereals. It's like the 8-year-old in me plans these rides, and also I plan this party. Take what you want. And it was awesome. And that was an honor to perform at your party, man.
Yeah, it was great to have you, man.
They're like, what's this guy singing about butts that do math? What is this guy? And Brian's like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, my relatives are like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm into this. What was funny
Brian seems happy. I don't know. He seems happy, but it was...
I told people that for my 40th birthday that geek attire was welcome.
Yes.
And some people that are in the kind of geek fan community, like, we all get what that means. That means like, wear your favorite X-Men T-shirt, or whatever. But then, my friends and family that aren't necessarily as entwined or aren't kind of entrenched in that culture, they're like, oh, I think that means dress up like a nerd, like pocket protector and tape on the glasses and like the stereotypes. So it was funny. I
kind of remember that now. Okay, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was great, man. And you rocked. It was a blast.
It was really
the way I remember us meeting, and I did have to look this up, but 2009, I believe, that was the year your self-titled album came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Your first one. Mm-hmm. And I met you at Long Beach Comic-Con.
Yes.
Yes. You had your own table with Jim.
Yeah.
And two of you, and I had never heard of a thing like nerd rock before. And you had headphones and a little Discman, and the song you played for me was Up Up Down Down.
It's a go-to, baby. 2009 go-to.
I'm like, this is something I've never heard, but I love it. Like, it was so cool.
Well, not getting off topic, but we stuck with a Discman for a long time, right? It was just like 2009, way to go. What do you mean? You're gonna bring out like a Zune? I don't know. What are you gonna do here? So. And then we got a second record. We're like, okay, now we got to have one of each. Okay, we got to have like a Sony here and a Pioneer one here. I don't know. How do we keep track of them? Oh, now we got a third one. Well, now we got to play musical Discman. And then someone's like, hey, dummy, there's a thing called an iPod. Have you heard of this? I'm just like, oh, yeah. Okay.
No, man, it was great. And then I became your Kirby Krackle stalker. I saw you at every convention after that. And I was determined to be your friend IRL.
And I was determined to be your friend, and we are friends.
Hey, here we are.
In a pandemic, talking on the internet. I love it.
Right, here we are.
So, bringing it together, when I first met you, you were an Imagineer, correct, for a while, and I really didn't get what that was at the time. And then I only really fully clued into it when I was watching the Disney Plus thing over Thanksgiving break. And I was like, oh, Brian did this shit? This is amazing. This is crazy. So I know that's probably going to be really appealing for hardcore Disney fans to hear about your time as an Imagineer. And what was that like, man? What were you doing?
Dude, it was awesome. The way I came into Imagineering was kind of lucky, to be honest. I was going to school. This was 2005. I won't go into the long version of this, but 2005, I'm in college and studying art. I was at Cal State Fullerton, and a buddy of mine, Josh Stedman, called me up and he said, hey, Imagineering is doing this design competition called Imaginations, and you basically got to come up with an attraction idea and submit it, and if we do a good enough job, we might get internships. And I was like, great, I need an internship, and I had nothing else to lose. I was working as a security guard at night and going to school during the day, and we came up with an attraction concept based on The Rocketeer, 1990. Yeah.
Love The Rocketeer, man.
Totally, man. Awesome. And so we came up with this right idea, and I did the storyboards of it, but made it look like a 1930s comic book. And we submitted to Disney. They dug our stuff. They called us up and did interviews over the phone, did in-person interviews, and sure enough, I got an internship out of that and was able to spin that into a full-time job working in visual imaging production. I was kind of putting together presentations and things like that. And then after about a year and a half, I was able to move into concept design. You know, a lot of late hours, proving I could do it, proving I had the chops. Because even once you get in the door, man, that's when the real work begins. And now you gotta, really sacrifice and make good relationships. And but I loved my time at Imagineering, and I still have a ton of friends there. And I was able to work on Finding Nemo, submarine voyage. That was the first thing that I worked on.
Yeah,
I was kind of at the tail end of that, but I helped out a little bit with some of the model, and then. Worked on It's a Small World for Hong Kong, and worked on Tron Light Cycles in Shanghai, and a whole host of blue sky, what we call blue sky development. A lot of Marvel stuff. Once Marvel came on board, that really became my bread and butter, and Star Wars and Avatar. And so I mean, I've been able to be involved in a lot of really cool IP that I enjoy. And so yeah, I loved my time there. It was a blast.
What's blue sky? When you say blue sky development, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's like the very beginning stages of, an attraction, concept development. So it's like any blue sky means like anything could happen.
Okay.
And so, blank canvas, what do we want to do? Again, that's going back to like the 8-year-old, like what would be the coolest thing to do? And of course we pay attention to, what are the films that are out there that are resonating, or, what do people want to experience? And as a concept designer, you really do have to kind of develop a thick skin, because I mean 90% of what you, at least for me, 90% of what I did just would never see the light of day. And so you always were throwing new ideas out there to see what would stick. And that really is kind of my favorite part of the process too, because it's early and anything can happen, and you're just kind of thinking about what are the coolest things that we could come up with.
That's the best, man. It's like first coming up with a song, right? Like it's just that's the most fun of anything. And then it's like, okay, hard work, like you said. Like you got the job, you were tripping probably, I'm sure. And then you're like, oh, this is not just like talking about comic books all day.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of work, but but it was fun work. It was work that I enjoyed and what I dreamed of doing. So
wow.
I feel very fortunate that I was able to get my foot in the door at Disney and then turn that into a new career at Marvel.
So when you pitch ideas, when it's blue sky and everyone's sitting around the table or wherever you are, is it like a yes and situation where it's like, I think this, and someone's like, yes and, or does everyone come like with their pitches and then the powers that be pick from that? I mean, or is it just like everyone building?
Well, it's kind of a mix. I think there's both approaches. Usually at the very, very beginning, it truly is just coming up with new ideas, and sometimes there's a prompt. There's a specific park that has a need and a type of attraction, maybe a thrill attraction, or what we would call like a C or a D ticket, which is more of a family attraction. And so sometimes, so just setting some parameters for what we might be designing.
Okay.
But in the case of the Iron Man experience, you mentioned that one in Hong Kong. That really was kind of my favorite. Was I had actually been working on a version of Star Tours to go into Hong Kong, and we found out from the local government and our local partners that Star Wars wasn't really didn't resonate quite as much as, say, the Marvel stuff was, and they really loved Avengers and Iron Man. And it dawned on me one night, kind of in the middle of the night, that hey, we had done that work to think about what Star Tours might be, and Hong Kong didn't have a Star Tours. I'm like, there's nothing sacred about Star Tours having to be married to a simulator type attraction. Couldn't we do something with Marvel in that way? And so I kind of sketched up an idea and wrote it up of what I was thinking. And the next day I showed it to some of my partners that I was working on. Said, hey, I had this idea. What if we did this? Because we had been talking about what Marvel might be in that park. And they said, well, let's kind of keep it as a dark horse idea. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it just won't happen. But I put together a pitch board, and sure enough, Tom Staggs, the head of Parks and Resorts at the time, he came in and we showed him a few ideas that we were working on. And they said, oh, yeah, Brian's got kind of this dark horse idea. And so I brought out my pitch board and ran him through what I thought it might be. And he loved it. And he was like, that's what we're going to do. And so originally it was like the whole Marvel universe, and it was kind of an Avengers thing, and then ultimately became an Iron Man attraction. And that, and I was able to, work on the beginnings of that. And then about towards the end of it, I transitioned over to Marvel. And so I was able to finish it up on the Marvel side. So yeah, I got to see that one all the way from beginning to end. So that the Iron Man experience will always have a special place in my heart, for sure.
And I just put up a bunch of slides so people could kind of see. I mean, I remember when you went to open that. And if I'm hearing you right, that's the transition from being an Imagineer to going over to Marvel events, right? So you
right.
From the beginning to the end.
Yeah, all the way through. And was able to be there on opening day in Hong Kong. And I do have a small cameo in that ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it?
At the very beginning, I'm sure people can find it on YouTube or something like that. But
yeah, you're Iron Man. That's what I'm saying. You're like...
Well, right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was Iron Man, but hold on to that.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting.
Yeah. So my actual cameo was at the very beginning. There's about 3 or 4 Stark Industries technicians down in the corner that are kind of working on the Iron Wing vehicles in the hangar. And I'm one of those technicians. I'm kind of the manager, and I've got like a clipboard, and I'm pointing to different things. And then there's a blast in the wall, and I have to duck. And so we spent a whole day on awesome. Set shooting that, and we got costumes, and it was so cool. I had never gotten to be in anything like that. So that was I'm more behind the scenes guy. So getting to like be on the set under the lights was interesting. But then, so the Iron Man piece in the what we call the pre-show or the queue. That's kind of the line you wait in. There was a bit where. Wendy Wong, who was the Hong Kong representative from Stark Industries, she was going to hit an Iron Man armor, and Iron Man, and it was actually Tony Stark in the armor, and so he kind of sprung to life and kind of pointed at her and had a few lines. Well, they needed somebody who could do the Iron Man kind of motion, like how he would move, how he would fly, how he would move his arms, and so they gave me a neon green spandex onesie.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, buddy. And so I was I when they handed it to me, I didn't know. They're like, "Hey, do you want to be Iron Man?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I get up to this room and I open the bag and I see what I've got to put on. And man, I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I almost just went home. I'm like, I don't know. But I went out there and did it, and we had a great time shooting that scene. And she got to hit my chest over and over and over again. So she had fun doing that too.
That's a good. I didn't know that story, dude. When you were the technician, we're like, "Hey, is everything good?" You're like, hey, what if a spider dropped on me since we're in a lab? It bit me, and then I'm the new thing.
Just throwing it all in there. You never know anything.
Like, oh, Brian's making a weird shit. God, or
Right.
cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or cool. So you start as an Imagineer,
Yeah.
you cross over to Marvel with the Iron Man experience, and then you go to Mission Breakout after that, right?
Let's see. I mean, we had a few smaller experiences in between, but yeah, Mission Breakout, Guardians of the Galaxy down at California Adventure. That was the next kind of big attraction.
That's
Yeah, and
beautiful, man. It's crazy looking.
yeah, man, that was an interesting one because that was one where the park came to us and they said that they, and I'm at Marvel at this point, and they said that they wanted to take Tower of Terror, a already beloved attraction, and do something new with it in the Marvel vein, and and we knew that because that attraction was beloved, that was gonna not everybody was gonna necessarily love that idea.
Yeah, it's not a popular idea.
And the interwebs they let us know that they had some thoughts.
Can't trust interwebs. They always have thoughts. They're always wrong.
So we that was one where we really dug in and believed in the story we were telling and thought it was not only different but actually maybe even an improvement on what was there before. And so we had to really believe in it, and and it was fun, and it was irreverent, and it had the music, and and it was right as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was about coming out, and so it ended up being just a blast, and we had such a great time, and I got to work with Joe Rohde, who's a legendary Disney Imagineer, and I learned so much from him in terms of how you tell stories in theme parks and just craft these experiences for people. He was an amazing mentor throughout that whole thing, so I felt very lucky to be a part of that.
That's so cool, man. And I think it's like I've heard more people talking about mentorship lately and how important it is to not just have it when you're like a little dude or little girl. You know what I mean? Like little one, like you just have. It's not just a teenage 20s thing. It's ongoing. It's like your 30s, your 40s. You can learn from people 60s, 70s. I just think that's really cool that you have that experience, because if it's anything like what I saw in the documentary, I would just listen to those people talk all day, man. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
And Imagineering is crawling with those kinds of people, and I mean just brilliant storytellers, artists, writers. I have so many amazing mentors that I was able to work with, Kevin Rafferty and Robert Coltrane and Tony Baxter and Joe Rohde. I mean, I don't know if those names mean anything to you. To Disney fans, they'll know those names. And
not to me. I'll nod like they do.
Yeah, I mean, so many of those people, were there for me and helped, kind of shape the creator that I was. And I'm eternally grateful to all of them for everything.
That's great, man. We kind of share a mutual thing for Guardians of the Galaxy, because you did that, and we did the soundtrack to season 1.
Yeah,
I think maybe the timeline when we both started working on our respective things were around the same time. Because originally our mutual homie Joe Q came to me and he's like, "Hey, this movie's coming out, Guardians of the Galaxy, and the comic." And I was thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, it's a thing from like the late 90s that I didn't want to buy anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I didn't really get what was going to happen here. Like I knew about it, but he goes, it's like, music plays a big thing. It's just kind of like this weird thing that's happening. He's like, do you want to do songs for it? And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds cool. And then it turned out to be the biggest movie in the world. Right. And he said, oh yeah, you can't do songs for that anymore. It's going to be like Nickelback and stuff. So just so you know, it's fine. And I'm like, okay. And then a year later, he wrote me. He goes, "Hey, do you remember that thing I talked to you about?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I do." Like every day, I was like, "No," until they call. But I think that came out close to when.
Yeah.
The cartoon came out. So
yes,
another
and
we have to each other.
Yeah, and I mean Joe. I mean he's another one of those great mentors for me. I mean he's the reason I got this job at Marvel. We really hit it off, when I was still at Imagineering and working on a lot of the Marvel content. Joe and I both discovered that we were big baseball fans, and so we ended up, really hitting it off, became great friends, and he's the reason I'm here too. So, and through that relationship, we were able to do the Disney Kingdoms line of comics, which was a line of comics that we worked on. Initially, I worked on when I was at Imagineering, but we turned because we'd always talked about what can Disney do with the Marvel IP, but we flipped that on its head and said, what can Marvel do with the Disney?
Oh, yeah.
And so we said, hey, what things like Haunted Mansion and the Enchanted Tiki Room and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, if we turn those into comics, what does that look like? And who are the characters and what are the environments we could explore?
That's crazy.
It was almost the kind of the Pirates of the Caribbean approach, with the films.
Yes.
Like, hey, we can take little nuggets from the ride and flesh that out into a full story in a comic book. And we're able to, do, I don't know how many titles, but we did Figment and Seekers of the Weird, which is based on an old idea that Walt came up with and Rolly Crump called Museum of the Weird.
Oh, cool.
So that was another project that just was a blast to work on as well.
Ruben asks, what are the chances of turning Animal Kingdom into Wakanda?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably not likely.
Repurpose. What's wrong with you? Repurpose. It's there. We want to go. Ruben, I'll get in line now.
I'm here in Wakanda right now.
Oh, yeah, Wakanda.
Yeah.
Ryan forever.
That's right.
Hey, so we're real quick. You're talking about baseball. You come from a baseball family too, right? Like you played ball, and then your dad. Tell me about your dad again.
Yeah, so I played in high school, but my brothers and my dad are far more entrenched in baseball than I am, at least professionally. I'm a huge fan, but my dad played in the major leagues in the 70s. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cincinnati Reds and Cleveland Indians, and then my brother Bobby, which people are more familiar with, he played for the Oakland A's. And was Rookie of the Year, American League Rookie of the Year in 2004.
Whoa.
And then my youngest brother Blake, he's a scout for the Toronto Blue Jays. So yeah, baseball's in the Crosby blood, man. And my son Bladen, he picked that up and he played in high school and he's hoping to play in college. And my other kids played in Little League, and so baseball is definitely a big part of our family for sure.
Dude, Cincinnati Reds in the 70s. You can't even tell those stories like on stuff like this. Those are like in time.
Yeah,
like,
big red machine, man.
Oh man, I love rock stories. I love sports stories. I love stuff like that from the 70s, especially. Right, when it's like there's a period of time. My uncle Gary, who taught me how to play guitar, and we're very close. He is actually the one who helped me record those tapes I was talking about earlier in the show. There was a time in the 70s where it was like right after yacht rock, where rock guys dressed like baseball guys. Where like you would wear like a baseball uniform playing Eagle songs and like real high socks, right? Like and it was like this baseball uniform on the top and the feet, but in the bottom it was just like weird rock guy stuff. I don't know. I'll just send you guys some photos. Opportunity missed by not putting it.
I love it.
Did I ever tell you?
Yeah, I mean those.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, the stories from back then where, I mean, there were seemingly no consequences to anything that you did or said. Half the stuff that was said back then, if it was said today, you'd be torn a new one, man. But, at least.
You'd be done. One thing.
Back then, it's like, fortunately, there was no Twitter and nothing to keep a record of half the stuff that went down in those days. But
70s stayed the 70s. Did I ever tell you that my friend Ruben Bash Brothers, exactly? Did he ever tell you that my dad in the early 80s or late 80s, he worked for Costaco's Brothers, the sports posters? Do you remember those? Where it was like
yes.
the Wizard of Boz. It was like Brian Bosworth, and then like
Brian Bosworth,
Dorothy, who was like a playmate, and then like the Space Needle behind him and stuff like that. And I went to a couple of those shoots.
Totally.
And it's like I don't have any like war stories from 70s, but looking back, I could kind of see how those dudes were just from that time though, right? It was like, hey, we're in like mafia suits, but we're both like linebackers. Okay, this is fun. See ya. And now those posters go for like $500 at like some vintage LA sports stuff. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. I totally remember the Bosworth one. I think it was hanging up in our my local baseball card shop. Norm Johnson, who was the kicker for the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
He went to my alma mater here in Orange County,
Okay.
Pacifica High School, and he owned the baseball card shop. So being a Seahawk, he had the Bosworth poster up, and so we always got a little bit of Seattle Seahawks culture thrown our way, even though we were very far away. Yeah, yeah.
So were you like a baseball card dude then?
Yeah, I was when I was a kid for sure. I was big into comics and baseball cards and all that. And then kind of comics I never really dropped. I stuck with comics all the way through. Baseball cards, I kind of stopped once I got into like high school and things like that. I've picked up a few here and there recently just for fun. I've been doing it with my kids and going back through my old baseball cards. But comics and cards, man, I was all in. But I discovered comics when I was about 10. Actually, I know it was 10. It was, I believe, Detective Comics number 576, I believe.
Awesome.
It was Batman Year 2, drawn by Todd McFarlane, and that was my first comic book I ever got. I stayed home sick from school, and my mom took me to a 7-Eleven, local 7-Eleven, and I'd never seen. And they had a spinner rack, and I was already a huge like superhero fan. I loved Super Friends and Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends and all that stuff. And they had a spinner rack of comics, and I was like, what is this? And they're like, oh, they come out every month. They're stories about Batman, Spider-Man, whatever. And I was like my 10-year-old mind was just blown. Yeah. And so I was only allowed to get one, but I got the one, and I still have that issue to this day. That set me off on a whole new chapter of just things that I love. But, it was through that comic, actually, that I discovered that I could do that for a living. Because when I watched movies and TV shows and whatnot, I think in the back of my mind I knew that people did them, but I didn't really think about it. Yeah. They were creators. Yeah. And you never stayed and watched the credits. Now, Marvel Studios has changed all that, and we watch every last credit now.
Never leaving.
But like back in the day, as soon as the credits roll, you're out. And when the credits roll on a TV show, it either changes to another show or you change the channel. But in a comic, the credits were in the front. And so immediately I discovered names like Stan Lee and Todd McFarlane and those guys. And so I was like, these are dudes that like do this, and that guy draws superheroes every day. And I'm like, 100%, that's what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys. And that was always my goal, was to be a comic book artist.
That's amazing, man. I feel like when that stuff hits you, like the more I talk to people here, and also just before, like, conversations after conventions or shows, that if you get hit in that sweet spot of like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 by something, and you're down with it, you're locked in.
Yeah. In fact,
you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think I mentioned one of my mentors before, Tony Baxter at Imagineering. He's a Disney legend now and has done a million things. But I think it was him that told me there's something unique about 12 years old and that age, because you're kind of deciding what parts of your childhood you're going to hold on to and carry with you into your teenage and adult years, and what parts you're going to leave behind. And so a lot of those things that were popular and big when you were 12, 13, those things tend to hit you really hard. And so I started looking at that, and I was like, that was when like Batman '89 came out, and Back to the Future, at least this part 2, and so I mean those kinds of things really, and Ghostbusters too. So whatever, those things really stuck with me from a pop culture standpoint, and I carried all that that same passion with me into other projects. But when I discovered the X-Men right around that time, and my first X-Men issue, I forget the number, somebody will know right off the bat, but it was the first appearance of Bishop. And
with Will Spatasio?
Yes. Yes. And my buddy Chris in junior high, he was like, you're only reading like Batman and Superman. Like, there's a whole nother universe over here, because I wasn't too familiar with the Marvel stuff, and he showed me the X-Men, and that was really, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, this is a whole new thing I've never heard of before, and I loved all the characters. So we were hardcore into X-Men for a long time. So
Ooh, chills, man. I got chills. We
yeah,
share a mutual timeline on this, and then Marvel Cards was at that time,
yes,
and that
yes.
shit was so good. Like I didn't eat lunch for like 3 days, and my mom couldn't understand why I was so grumpy when I was coming home. And then she's like, "What'd you have for lunch?" I was like, Marvel Cards from the Circle K. Oh, what? Oh shit, you can't take them back. I guess they're mine now. And my buddy John Ford, shout out to John if he's watching. A couple of years ago, he got some X-Men cards off eBay, and he like sent them to me or something. And it was like just you tore it open, it just kind of smeared the print a little bit. It was like muscle memory, man. It was so
So good, so good.
so good. The thing before I forget, the thing about the first appearance of Bishop or X-Men 1 or that time with the 5 covers, right? When we've been fortunate enough to do those trips to Australia, those are the only conventions where they intermix media guests with musical guests with artists and writers. So you're just like this big traveling circus. And I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but I met Wills there, and I met
Oh wow.
Chris Claremont there. And it's so funny because when you first are there, it's like everyone's just kind of like peers, kind of. It's like everyone's kind of not pretending like they know who each other are. No one's worried about that about me, but I'm talking about myself and other people. And it's like Chris Claremont was hanging out and stuff. Like no one's saying anything about X-Men. No one's saying anything. I mean, people don't know. I'm sure a lot of people know he did X-Men with Jim Lee, right? That's like the
Yeah.
ABCs of me, baby. Like that's what it is. So we're sitting around, and I remember we were just one day at lunch. I go, so that scene where Colossus gets dropped into the mansion when Archangel's carrying him from X-Men 1, and it's like he almost knew that was going to be a thing, and then it like opened the door to just nerds talking to him about stuff when all he wanted to talk about was like The Wire or something like that. This poor guy.
Right, right.
But then Wilson was really cool. We talked about that stuff too, and he was kind enough to ask about music, but we were definitely talking to him about X-Men and like Wetworks and all that stuff like that from Image. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I love being a fanboy to people like that.
I know, and I do gotta, I gotta rein that in a little bit, sometimes when I'm because I work with a lot of these guys at conventions and things like that.
Yeah.
But in all the cons that I had done and helped put together at Marvel, and I had never been able to run into Todd again. And my first San Diego Comic-Con, I went. My mom took me down to San Diego to get my Spawn #1 signed.
Mm-hmm.
I still have to this day. In fact, my mom just brought it to the house the other day. She wanted to show her Spawn #1 that she got signed. But but again, Todd's name was the first name that I saw in that book of like, this is a thing I can do.
Yeah.
Set me off on like what I want to do in my life and my career. And last year, unfortunately, after the passing of Stan Lee, I was able to be part of the core team that helped put together the Marvel tribute.
Oh yeah, you did that. That was great, man.
Thanks. The Marvel tribute for Stan Lee up in New York, and we had the after party, and Todd was certainly there. Todd was one of the speakers. I know he had a very close personal relationship with Stan, and I told my buddy Bill Higa, if he's watching, shout out to Bill. I gotta meet Todd. I need to say this piece. I need to thank him for kind of introducing this world to me, even though he did it indirectly. And sure enough, Bill introduced me to Todd, and I got to talk to him for a little bit. And Todd was he wasn't as excited to talk to me. He was was excited to talk to my son. He pulled my son aside and told him something, like, you don't need to listen to your parents, do what you want to do, be crazy. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's great advice, but
what you doing to me here, Todd? What's going on here? That was cool, man.
Totally undercut me right there. But he was great, and he was, very gracious, and it was great to meet him. In fact, to this day, I've been able to do a lot of kind of signings and things for paintings that I've done with Disney and with Marvel, and meet a lot of fans. And I remember when I met Todd that first time at San Diego Comic-Con, I walked up to the table with my book, and he goes, "Hey, bud." And that "Hey, bud" in his in his accent, the way he talks. I now, whenever I meet a kid in a signing, I always say, "Hey, bud," and that's the first thing I'll say to them. So I've carried that with me, and it's a little.
It
But
made you feel good, make them feel good.
did I felt like he was my friend, like he was my pal.
He
So
was your friend. That's amazing.
yeah,
Dude, that's so funny. I think it just goes to show like people are just people, and even though we all know that, if someone holds like an emotional place in your heart or a part of your formative story, you're still just gonna be like, versus people, no matter what.
yeah,
Or Joe Q, we were talking about when he played with Kirby Krackle years ago before we
yeah.
talked about other stuff. Got to know each other a little bit better. He played on stage, and right before I went on stage, I said, "Yeah, I got your comic. I got my comic signed by you when I was 11. Okay, let's go. We're gonna go right up there." I told him afterwards. I said, "You can't leave. You were gonna do it." I had to say it right there. It's done.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
dude, one thing we haven't talked about yet, and I know you can't talk so much about it, but the most recent is Galaxy's Edge, right? And that
Yeah.
just came out, and I want to hear a little bit if you can tell people about what your involvement is with that, because I know people love it. I still haven't been there, but it's obviously amazing. And what was that like working on that?
Yeah, the team did a tremendous job, and the new attraction, Rise of the Resistance, is really a game changer. If people haven't been out there to ride that, I strong recommend. So I wasn't really involved in Galaxy's Edge as you know it today. I worked on a much earlier version of it for about 2 to 3 years, and we didn't know really anything about what the new movies would become. So I worked on kind of an earlier version of what that land might look like. That was all kind of based on the earlier films and things like that. So I can't get too much into that, but it was it was a lot of fun, and I was able to go up to Lucasfilm and work with those folks and
Wow.
talk to Dave Filoni, and man, he's just a Star Wars guru, man. And it was awesome to go up there and work with my buddy Jason Sorrell on that and Chris Beatty, who ultimately delivered Galaxy's Edge. And so yeah, it was a blast to work on some of the early versions of that. But again, that's kind of the blue sky concept design process. But yeah, it was fun to work on.
So if I was there, I'm just gonna put myself there for a second. If I was part of the blue sky situation, and I was like, "Hey, I know we've already seen the first episode of the new trilogy, but what if Kylo Ren was really Billy D. Williams when he took off his mask?" And they'd be like, "Well, would they like that, or would they like?" And it's like a Colt 45 tie-in, like bringing a long gone brand back. I just see there's like synergy there. Is that like a yes and, or is that just no?
I think that's definitely a yes and. You go, yeah, I like where your head's at.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
See, I have great ideas like this, but I don't know what to do with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. Okay, I know you are a busy man. You're homeschooling, right? Are you like a teacher now, or what's going on?
No. My kids are older, and the ones that are still in school, they have Zoom classes and things like that. So I'm working remotely, trying to still project out on what the next fan experiences are going to be, and events once we get back to some semblance of normalcy in the world. But yeah, we're still moving forward, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully, we can sooner rather than later we can get back to normal and get back to the cons and do all this stuff again and rekindle these relationships, because that's part of the fun.
Yeah, totally, man. I want to come down to see Mission Breakout still so bad, and when I'm in there, I'm like, I know Brian. Brian did this. No, Brian did this. Brian did this.
That's nice of you to say. But
I would say, I want to write on the side, Brian did this, right on the side of it.
I was a small part of what a big team that worked on that.
Well, I know you do a good job, man. They keep bringing you back.
Thanks,
I
man.
wanted to play a game with you. This is a tradition now. It's nothing that I set out to do. I was trying to make a 95-year-old happy. The only 95-year-old I know. So we did this thing called Cookie Cage Match. This is like an NCAA bracket system.
All right.
We're gonna go down your favorite cookies. It's like don't think with here, think with here. Okay, this is where I want you to come from on this.
All right.
No right answer. I'm just looking for metrics at the end of 5 years of this. That's what I care. That's the whole reason we're doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna throw some cookie names at you. Chocolate chip or butterscotch?
Chocolate chip.
Never fails. Oatmeal or snickerdoodle?
Snickerdoodle.
No bake or meringue?
What was the first one?
No bake? No bake cookies?
I'll
You
go
don't
that one because I'm not a
bake.
big lemon guy.
You're not a big lemon guy?
No.
So no bake. Okay.
Yeah.
Peanut butter or ginger snap?
Peanut butter.
PB&J. PB&J. Okay. Next round.
Okay.
Chocolate chip or snickerdoodle?
Ooh. I'll go Snickerdoodle.
I should have done this for cereals for you. That would have been more.
Oh, totally.
Oh, missed opportunity. Oh, we'll have you back. No bake or peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
PB&J. PB&J. Okay. We're going to put on the party noise here.
That is the saddest.
What is that?
Just trails off.
Oh, I thought that was my daughter for a second. I'm not gonna lie, and that usually happens, and then like farts are funny now, and I have to pretend they're not, and that's just really a hard thing for me to do because they're very funny. Snickerdoodle or peanut butter?
I'm gonna go peanut butter.
Oh, and with that, Ruben says clowns run. That's a clown's down. Sorry, his wife doesn't like. Are you triggered, Lita? I'm so sorry. I hope you're not triggered by that. All right, peanut butter. We've got chocolate chip, no bake, and now peanut butter. And what does it all mean? Brian, thank you so much for being on here. You're a good man. You're a talented man. Your family loves you. Your friends love you. I'm glad that I know you.
Thanks, buddy. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll talk to you later, man.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye. That's Mr. Brian Crosby. That's a good dude. You know, Brian has had such a journey through fandom, starting as just like a fan, like we all are, and then going to become an Imagineer, and then working at Marvel. And I know he's got lots of cool stuff coming up. He's got stuff coming up that he's not telling me about. I'm like, come on, man. He's like, no, it's fine. I can't tell you. That's a true professional. That's how we know he's one of the good ones. All right, so right now we're going to talk about something really fun before we close out here. I had a great weekend. I had a super hard weekend, and I had a great weekend. Let's talk about it. This weekend, I filmed a music video. I filmed a music video that was unexpected because I wrote a song that was unexpected, and I have a dream. I have a dream of starting a term in the urban slang dictionary. Okay, I don't know if it's going to happen, but if I have a chance, this might be it. I have a single coming out this weekend for which I ended up looking like this. That's a great photo. That looks like someone that needs some help. And I did. Because my body was broken after dancing for 8 hours straight while filming a socially distanced music video in my home for this single that's coming out on Friday. Music and video. Quarantine. Hashtag quarantine. What is quarantine? Well, the definition of quarantine, as I have decreed, is a jacked up physical and emotional state of being, having been sheltered in place during a pandemic that becomes ... empowering. You might know director Joe Corella from the X-Men Pool Party video, okay? Joe is a friend of mine. We talked back and forth all the time. I was asked to do a song for some local TV stuff coming up, and I said, I have a song, which was, I want to social distance with you, girl. But I said, how about we do a video instead? This song is called Quarantine. It's maybe the craziest thing I've ever done. I danced for 8 hours in my house over the weekend. It features my daughter. It features a bicycle helmet. It features me flossing. Many takes of me flossing. I think we finally got a good one in. I can't wait to show it to you. This is the first place you guys have heard about it officially, other than the internet seeing the picture. Quarantine comes out on Friday. We basically filmed it where we did a storyboard, and then I would set up the lights. I would set up the scene. I filmed it with an Osmo Pocket in 4K, and then I would FaceTime the director, right? And I would show him what I did, and I would show him what I'm going to do, and he'd say, go for it. And I did it, and then I went to the computer, and I uploaded all the files, and I sent it to him, and he's been working on it feverishly since Saturday night when it was done. 1 day of shooting, and I think he finished editing it in like 2 days. So right now we're working on B-roll. We're working on, oh, no one wants to see that again. We're working on B-roll. We are working on a behind the scenes kind of situation. We are working on getting it all ready to go and getting all the logos photoshopped out for debut on Friday. So I hope you like it. I hope it shows you that we're all a mess, like I definitely am. And we had a lot of fun, and I think it translates. So I really hope you guys like it. It's coming out Friday, probably about 10 a.m. And then it is yours to do with it what you wish. My name is Kyle Stevens. Thank you so much for being here, aka Kirby Krackle. I'm going to be next Wednesday, as is the tradition. I am going to be having, let's put up here, Wednesdays at 6 so you can see it. I'm going to be having Joe Corella, the director of Quarantine, an X-Men pool party, where we show the video, which you've already seen. We're going to show the B-roll. We're going to talk about how we did it. We're going to talk about how we did maybe one of the few, I'm assuming, socially distanced videos in the world yet. And Wednesdays at 6, next Wednesday at 6, KirbyKrackleMusic.com. Shoot me an email. We're doing this thing where I am not having fans interviewed on here as previously thought, just because of scheduling. But what I'm doing is I'm inviting you to send a 1 minute to 3 minute video to the email address on the website. And I want to share your story here in full 16:9 glory to the internets about what you're doing. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to communicate to the Kirby Krackle family, whatever you want to share with the internet about your experience. So, I say it went pretty good. Today, no big F-ups today. Yeah. Feeling it. Oh. Until next time. My name is Kyle Stevens. Thank you so much. And as always, let's hear from my grandma.
You're weird, but I love you.
I love you too. All right, be good. Stay safe. Stay inside or in your backyard. Don't cough on anybody. Peace.